What's up, Archons? I'm Flightless Pheasant, and today I'm going to tell you about all the fun I had at my local store championships, and then I want to hear what you guys did for yours. So come on along, and let's talk about all the fun that can be had at our local store champs before we get ready for the big Vault Tour season. So the first store champ I went to was at Voss Media Board Game Cafe. It was a sealed store championship, and I was actually running and organizing the event, which was a super big honor, but it definitely made sure that I was busy the entire time. I'm going to take you through the decks that I had to choose from. I'm going to take you through the selection that I made, and then I'll take you through all of the games that I played as best as I can remember them, and we'll see how that all turned out. So let's get started. So this is one of the decks that I opened. This is Maggot Crate Idlewind Neoland Misfit. If that name's not a mouthful, I don't know what is. I actually pulled two pods out of this deck. I grabbed the Aquiden pod and the Logos pod. So Decks of KeyForge doesn't think very much of this Aquiden pod, but I loved the hoist operations that all had so many pips on them. I also really liked the niche market, because I knew that I was going to be playing 3 Quantum Mice, and Niche Market with 3 Quantum Mice seemed like a pretty good plan to me. It ended up working out pretty well and didn't really backfire very much at all, so I'm pretty happy with that. The Logos had a remote access, it had Arsonometer, it had Daughter, it had Information Exchange, just good things that I felt pretty good about. This Skyborn pod I didn't really like, so I had 3 different Skyborn pods to choose from, and I didn't end up choosing any of them, but there's at least one that might have been good, but that I ultimately walked away from, and this isn't it. Just nothing really special to talk about in that particular Skyborn pod. This is Callisto, the Guild Head of Whisper Pass. This one I did pull the Brobnar pod out of, and I grabbed it primarily for Pile of Skulls, returning champion with a Clap of Thunder, and Berserker Slam. So a little bit of Amber control, a little bit of fighting, a little bit of board control. I felt pretty good about it overall, but Decks of KeyForge thinks I should have gone a different way, and maybe it's right, but that was what I went with. This Aquiden pod is considered a lot better than the other one that I went with, but it also has a Cursed Relic, just like the other one did. But unlike the other one, there's no draw pips in here, and so I thought this one would be better because with the Quantum Mice, I could make the draw pips into discard pips to get the Cursed Relic out of my hand, which did work. I was able to do that a few different times, but it thinks that this one's better, and maybe it is. And then this is the Skyborn pod that Decks of KeyForge thinks is the good one. 2 Against All Flags, 2 Navigator Keytars. I maybe should have played this, but I ultimately went with the Brobnar instead. I just felt like the Brobnar had more going on than I wanted, but I don't know, maybe that was a mistake. And then the last deck was BD Mixocrisis of the Liquid Dungeon. So I didn't take anything out of this deck. The Dis pod is apparently fairly good, but it's mostly on the back of Clipped Wings, and Amber Skies versus Amber Skies, you don't usually get too much out of Clipped Wings other than purging random cards out of your opponent's hand, which could be good, but its best use for getting rid of archives is not super great in Amber Skies versus Amber Skies, except on a handful of exceptional occasions. It had a Vapor Imp that got pipped into Logos, and maybe that alone should have been enough to convince me to grab it. Plus a Ritual of Tognath and a pair of Ecstasy Siphons, but ultimately I wanted the Brobnar more, and so that's the direction I went. This Logos is basically just a worse version of the Logos I took. It has 3 Hologramophones where the other one had 2. It has 1 Quantum Mouse where the other one had 3. It has a Daughter and an Information Exchange, but no Arsonometer. So yeah, ultimately just kind of a worse Logos pod. And then this Skyborn is not too bad. There's a Black Tempest and a pair of Safe Ports, but otherwise really kind of nothing. So yeah, I walked away from this one as well. So I ended up playing the Brobnar out of Callisto and the Aquiden and Logos out of Misfit, and that's what I was playing for the Seal Tournament. So I went into the first round of the Seal Tournament, and I played against someone who'd been playing for like less than a week. I actually taught her how to play, and she was playing just one deck. She didn't buy multiples to do a Sealed Alliance. She just bought the one, and her deck had some pretty cool stuff going on in it, but lack of experience does matter in KeyForge, and so I ended up winning that game 3 keys to 0. I went into round 2, and I played against a member of Team Visible Hand who's a good friend of mine, and had the most embarrassing loss of my entire KeyForge career. Seriously, 0 keys, 0 amber to 3 keys on turn 7. Because on turn 4, he managed to set up having an Acugio with a Void Shields and a Hollow Camo on it. And I was like, man, I need both of my hoist operations just to take him off the field for 1 turn. And even then, I would forge, 1 key? Maybe? Yeah, it was rough. And I ended up losing that game pretty badly. Probably the most embarrassing loss of my entire KeyForge career. Like, I don't like losing that quickly, and I especially don't like losing that badly. Because it doesn't feel like we really even had a fight for it. But anyway, then I went into round 3, and I played against somebody who'd been playing for about a month, and had a couple of good decks, and he also just opened a deck and played it. But his was 3 against all flags and 2 safe ports. Along with some other good stuff in his other houses. And that was a close game, 2 keys to 3, or maybe only 1 to 3. I actually don't remember super well. But he ended up coming in 3rd overall, and the guy I lost to in round 2 came in 1st overall. So, you know, I feel like I tried my best, but I got beat up by people who did better than me. So I did go to a second store championship, this one for Archon, and I went to a place called Homebrew Board Game Lounge. It's about an hour away from me, and they've done some stuff there before, but I never really managed to make it, so this was my first time going to this store. And yeah, I was playing Archon, so I'm going to show you guys the deck I was playing. I'm going to tell you how the whole thing turned out, and yeah. So for the Archon Store Championship, I played a deck that some of you might recognize. This is Ragpart the Immortal Badland Crony. This is my Alpha Gamma deck with a 104 SAS. It was 114 when I first opened it, but it has slowly trickled down as people have realized Alpha Gamma is good, but perhaps a little slow, which is exactly the problem I ran into. So the Logos pod here is incredible. 47 SAS is nuts, and it is just running away with the ability to archive and get itself set up and generate value. But it doesn't generate amber very quickly, which is a bit of a problem. The Skyborn, also incredible, 35 SAS, is mostly on the back of 2 Black Tempests and 3 against all flags, which it definitely gets value out of as a way to generate a bunch of amber by just stealing it from my opponent. And then the Untamed pod is not rated very highly, but I do think that this is actually better than they're giving it credit for, because 2 Warfalines lets me shuffle my against all flags back into my deck, or my Black Tempests if they manage to get destroyed. I've managed to get value out of a Scout to use a Black Tempest out of its normal house lineup. And Keyfrog with Cooperative Hunting is pretty good, especially because this deck generates so many tokens so fast. Like, seriously, you board wipe and then I'll have 6 creatures again the very next turn. It is pretty nuts. So anyway, that's Ragpart the Immortal Badland Crony. So I sat down to play my first game, and everybody here was a member of Team Visible Hand. So there were so many of us here playing. And I played against my first opponent, and Ragpart showed me his little bit of his flaw, and that is, the deck does tend to win, but it's kind of slow to set up. It takes a minute to get everything rolling, and my opponent managed to get 2 keys before I even got my first. But once I had everything on board, I managed to roll ahead and get 3 keys pretty quickly, and I did win my first round. However, my second round, I ran into some trouble. So my opponent was playing a Mass Mutation deck with 2 Discombobulators and 5 of the Sins, including Envy and Gluttony. And in the early game, he played a Discombobulator, shuts down my Skyborn, can't steal, so I had to deal with that. And then he played a second one, had to deal with that, and by this point he already had 2 keys. I managed to squeak in a key while the Discombobulators were gone, and then bam, here comes Envy and Gluttony, and just nothing to do from there. He managed to get his 3rd key, and I lost 3 keys to 1. And then the last game I played against another member of Team Visible Hand, and he was playing a Geistoid, Mars, Grim Reminders, good stuff, basically. Ecto Charge, 3 Winds of Death, 2 target Unixodils, maybe even 3 target Unixodils. Like, it was just really good. No key abduction, fortunately, but otherwise, just a really solid deck. And that was a close game. I think it ended up being 2 keys to 3, but it actually might have only been 1. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, Grim Reminders did good Grim Reminder stuff, and I just wasn't really able to keep up, which is crazy to think that I just wasn't able to keep up, but there it is. So again, I ended up 1 to 2. So 1 win, 2 losses for that event as well. So that was my store championship experience. Couldn't get a positive record to save my life, but hey, man, I feel like I fought the good fight and did the very best that I could. Tell me about your store champ experience. Have you done them yet? Are you going to be doing them in the future? I don't think I'm doing any more just because I don't think my schedule permits it. But I managed to get 2 in, which I feel pretty good about. Put your thoughts down in the comments. Let me know. I am doing a live stream event next Wednesday, the 26th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Come on over. We're going to talk about store champs. We're going to talk about prophetic visions. We're going to talk about draconian measures. We're going to talk about the organized play season as a whole and what we're doing for vault tours and all that good stuff. I love doing those hangouts. I had a great time last time. So guys, come on down. We'll have a blast for sure. I got no doubt. But that's all I have for you today. So until next time, later, Archons.